Dragon Ball FighterZ beta is out. I wanted to put this video out because there are people out there who are fighting game fans, but they're not Dragon Ball fans, and they're confused, like, who the heck are all these characters? I'm going to briefly go over all of them to give you guys an idea. There's going to be a lot of words on these slides, so I'll link it in the description below if you want to check out the presentation as like a reference later to read more about some of these characters. However, in the video, I'm not going to be spending too much time on each one. I'm just going to kind of blow through to keep it short. All right, so let's go. This is a brief overview of the order of what stuff happens in. I just want to note that this stuff in the middle is Dragon Ball Z. It's preceded by another show called Just Dragon Ball, which is about Goku growing up as a kid and having fun adventures before it gets kind of serious. And then afterwards, it's followed by Dragon Ball Super, which is airing right now, and it details some new adventures that are happening after Dragon Ball Z. A few characters from Dragon Ball Super do appear in the game Dragon Ball FighterZ, but we're mostly going to be focusing on the middle. So, right before Dragon Ball Z starts, at the end of Dragon Ball, Goku and Piccolo fight. Piccolo is a villain at this point in time, and he wants to take over the world. Goku stops him. So, as Dragon Ball Z opens, that's kind of where we're at. These guys are rivals, and Piccolo wants to take over the world, but can't because Goku's there, not going to let him do it. Let's talk about Dragon Balls. So, Dragon Balls are actual objects. There are 7 of them. If you look here on the Dragon Radar, there are 7 dots, and this is showing their locations. The heroes have this Dragon Radar to find them. Once they are found, you gather them all together, you say the secret phrase, and the dragon appears to grant your wish. The dragon's name is Shenron. By the way, I'm not going to be throwing any Japanese names around or anything, so all these guys do have Japanese names. Someone might be using different names for some of these things. So, this dragon appears, grant you one wish. There are certain limits to what he can do, because he's a being, he's a powerful being, but he can't defeat the really powerful villains. There are some other things he can't do, but primarily the good guys want him to bring people back to life, which he can do one time, only one time. And the villains want him to, like, give them immortality and stuff like that. So sometimes the villains and the heroes come into conflict over these powerful objects. That happens pretty quickly when these evil Saiyans come to Earth at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. They're here for a different reason at first. They want to bring Goku back into the fold because, as it turns out, Goku, who's been having fun adventures as a kid in Dragon Ball, he's an alien. And furthermore, he's an evil alien. Not exactly evil, but battle-hungry. These guys want to conquer planets, sell them to the highest bidder. They're working for a really evil guy, Frieza, who we'll talk about in a second. But Goku's a good guy now. Goku doesn't want any part in their tomfoolery. So they say, okay, that's fine. You've got these cool Dragon Balls. We're just going to take those and give ourselves immortality. And we'll tear the Earth apart to do it if we have to. So the heroes want to fight these guys off, essentially. Let's talk about some of those heroes now. Besides Goku and Piccolo, who is forced to team up to make sure that there's an Earth to take over when this is all done. Krillin is Goku's best friend from childhood. Tien and Chaozu are used to be rivals with Goku, but now they're kind of his friends. There's also Yamcha, not pictured here because I couldn't fit it, unfortunately, but he's the guy with the long black hair and scars on his face, and the orange suit just like this one. They are kind of Earth's protectors, but Goku is more powerful than all of them because he's an alien. Like, that's just kind of the way it goes. They train as hard as they can, but they're just not as strong as him, which is fine. You can see them using some of their techniques here. I guess the only one I briefly want to talk about is this solar flare, which Krillin uses as well, and I think Goku is capable of using it, but in Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's not one of his moves. This is sunlight. So when Krillin does solar flare and it does like this area around him where they get stunned, it's because the characters get blinded by the sun. It's not like a blast or anything. Another hero is Gohan here, Goku's son. He's very young and he gets too scared to fight a lot of the time, but he actually is very strong because he is part alien as well. He trains with Piccolo. Piccolo teaches him to be a little bit tougher. And at the same time, Gohan kind of teaches Piccolo to be a little bit nicer. That's kind of how he becomes a good guy. And it's important because Gohan gets scared during the battle with the Saiyans and freezes up and is gonna die. Piccolo jumps in front to save him. And Piccolo is kind of a bad guy. So this is very surprising that Piccolo would sacrifice himself to save Goku's son, the son of his worst enemy. So Gohan respects Piccolo a lot. And when the battle's done, Piccolo's dead, Chaozu's dead. This is him trying to blow himself up to defeat one of the villains, but doesn't work. Tien dies, Yamcha dies, a lot of people are dead. Very crucially, Piccolo had a hand in creating the Dragon Balls, so when Piccolo dies, the Dragon Balls become useless. They're destroyed. So the heroes can't bring their friends back to life for this reason. However, they find out that Piccolo is also an alien, in addition to Goku. I mean, one could have guessed since he's green and all. But he's from a planet called Namek. On Namek, they also have Dragon Balls. So they make a spaceship and fly to planet Namek to get Dragon Balls to wish their friends back to life. However, there's a problem. Frieza finds out about these Dragon Balls as well. Frieza is the big villain that I mentioned earlier who is telling the Saiyans what to do. And he has some other minions, like these two might be characters in Dragon Ball FighterZ. These 5 might be characters in Dragon Ball FighterZ. They're not announced right now, so I won't talk about them. But Frieza's getting the Dragon Balls so that he can wish immortality for himself. And the heroes want them at first to resurrect their friends, but now it's just like, let's get it out of Frieza's hands. Like, please, like, don't let this guy become immortal because he'll take over the whole universe, basically. He's very powerful. Even his minions are too powerful for the heroes to defeat. The very, very, very low-level minions are the only people that they can fight, so the first part of the Frieza saga is the heroes sneaking around, trying to get the Dragon Balls behind Frieza's back, running away from everyone except for, like, the weakest members of the Frieza Force they can actually fight to get the Dragon Balls. At the same time, Vegeta from earlier, he is the only Saiyan left out of these 3, and he is sneaking around to get them for himself. So there's kind of 3 sides. Eventually, Vegeta's forced to team up with the heroes to confront Frieza over the last Dragon Balls. And you'll note, Frieza looks a little bit different here than he is in the game. That's because Frieza can power himself up, and when he does, his appearance changes. So they eventually work their way through the ranks and get to Frieza himself. Goku eventually manages to show up as well and fight alongside the heroes. They actually get their hands on the Dragon Balls and they wish Piccolo back to life, and Piccolo comes to help. So anyway, eventually this long saga culminates in Goku versus Frieza one-on-one. Goku can't quite beat him. Frieza's messing around with Goku. Frieza kills Goku's best friend, Krillin. And Goku gets really mad and becomes a Super Saiyan for the first time after all of his... showed a little bit of a sneak peek there. Yeah, it's like this golden hair thing. So at this point, though, Goku's the only guy who's ever done it, as far as anyone knows. And it's like, no one even knows that if it's real or not. It's just a legend. But it turns out the legendary Super Saiyan is a real thing. Goku becomes one, defeats Frieza. No problem. We're done with the Frieza saga at long last. So then everyone goes home after everyone wishes their friends back to life. Vegeta's complacent for now. They teamed up to defeat Frieza, but Vegeta himself was defeated in such a humiliating fashion, and Goku managed to win, that Vegeta's like bloodlust for conquering a bunch of stuff is kind of sated for now, and he's really just focused on fighting Goku, and that's it. Like, that's all he really wants to do. So all the bad guys are pretty much gone for now. Piccolo's a good guy. Vegeta's temporarily kind of like satiated. Frieza's dead, or is he? He actually comes back, but as you can see here, it's not a big deal because this other mysterious stranger, Trunks, shows up out of nowhere and just slices him in half in like 1 second. In the Dragon Ball FighterZ game, this attack is not even a super move, it's a special move. So it's one where Trunks like slices him up into a bunch of pieces and then like blasts him with one hand, and it takes exactly that long in the show as in the game. It's like 3 seconds, defeat Frieza, this guy who they spent 100 episodes trying to beat. This guy shows up out of nowhere, turns Super Saiyan instantly, defeats Frieza. Who the heck is this guy? Well, it turns out that he is Vegeta's son from the future. So yes, there is a little bit of time travel here, but it's straightforward. Trunks is from a future timeline where these guys, the androids, Android 18 and 17, killed everyone except for Trunks himself, and he's come back in time to save this timeline. It's basically 2 parallel timelines. So the stuff that he does here will not affect his own future, but he's here to save their timeline, help them, warn them that the androids are coming. And at the same time, he's hoping that with everyone's help, he'll be able to find some sort of weakness or something that he can use to defeat the androids in his own timeline. Another important thing that he does is that when I said earlier that the androids killed everyone, that's not actually true. They didn't kill Goku. That's because before the androids ever attack, Goku gets sick and dies in Trunks' future. So he brings Goku medicine to make sure that that doesn't happen again, basically. So he's here, bring medicine, figure out a weakness, defeat the androids in this timeline as well. That's pretty much it. Let's talk about what the heck is going on with these androids. Androids 17, 18, and 16 are the important ones. There are 2 more, androids 20 and 19. Android 20 is Dr. Gero, the one who created all of the androids in the first place. In the original Dragon Ball show, Goku defeats Dr. Gero's world domination, like Team Rocket army. The androids become a project just to take revenge on Goku. All of these androids were created only to defeat Goku. However, the androids, these 2 used to be human. They've been turned into robots. They're not too happy about it. They kill Dr. Gero, and now they can do whatever they want, including release Android 16, who I believe is actually the main villain in Dragon Ball FighterZ, but I'm not 100% sure. There's also, in Dragon Ball FighterZ, while we're on the subject, another character called Android 21. She is a completely new character to Dragon Ball FighterZ, does not appear in the show at all, so we'll see what she's up to. But these guys are actually not that evil in the show. They're mostly just interested in doing whatever they want. They don't want to be controlled. If no one gets in their way, no big deal. Like, we're not going to mess with anyone if they don't mess with us. As the heroes kind of start to figure that out, a new, actual, legitimate threat emerges, which is Cell. Dr. Gero, Android 20, gathered the cells of all the human fighters and alien fighters and combined them into one powerful being. So Cell can use some good guy techniques, such as the Kamehameha. And Cell is like, I'm going to kill hundreds of people. I'm going to absorb them to become more powerful. I'm going to use that power to absorb Android 17. This is Android 17's lower half right here in the process of being absorbed. He's going to absorb Android 17 and 18, and once I do that, I will be perfect and powerful. The most powerful being ever. And that most powerful being ever is Perfect Cell, who is the way that Cell appears in the Dragon Ball FighterZ game. And once he becomes Perfect Cell, he's like, alright, now that I'm perfect, let's see how much I can do. Let's fight. Hey, heroes. We'll fight each other, and when we're done, I'll destroy the planet. Whatever. This is a little bit different from Frieza. Frieza is very evil and wants to, be an evil emperor and lord it over people and stuff like that. Cell just wants to be cocky and be the strongest and test his power, blah, blah, blah. He fights the heroes. He actually defeats Goku, but Gohan, if we go back to earlier, he's grown up a little bit, and Goku says, hey, Gohan's stronger than me now. And no one really believes him, including Gohan, but Gohan manages to become powerful enough to defeat Cell, but Gohan goofs off a little bit too much. Cell kills Goku. Specifically, he almost destroys the planet. Goku sacrifices himself to save it. It's kind of Gohan's fault, but he, after that, gets it together and defeats Cell. After Cell is defeated, there's many years of peace. There's a time skip here where the show doesn't really follow the intervening years too much. So Vegeta, as I mentioned before, has kind of gone through this arc where he used to be a bad guy, but now he's just kind of rivaling Goku, and now Goku's dead. I'm married now. I have a son, Trunks, like small Trunks, not future grown-up Trunks. I'm just going to be a family man, right? He's kind of a good guy at this point. But a new threat emerges, which is Buu. The heroes have to fight Buu. Buu is not really that bad of a guy in his... you'll notice he's a little bit different looking here. The Buu in the game, Fat Guy Buu, he's not really evil. He just doesn't understand the concept of, like, don't kill people, it's bad. He just wants to eat food, basically. And he happens to have this move where he can turn anyone into food and then eat them. So this guy, the evil magician, this is the one of the two evil magicians, Babidi. He has a son, Babidi, who's the guy manipulating Buu, making him do evil things. Buu kind of almost learns the power of friendship, but then at that point, something very bad happens to make him mad, and then he becomes this more evil form. So this is kind of the evil villain that the heroes eventually end up defeating, but the Buu in the game is a more childlike, like, I'm just messing around, but I don't quite understand the idea that I shouldn't be killing people, essentially. So he is a villain, but he's not, like, really a quote-unquote bad guy. One of the people who fights Buu, besides Goku and Vegeta, I say one of the people, but really it's two people, Goten and Trunks. So Trunks at this point in time is like 8, not grown-up future Trunks like from the future. Goten is Goku's second son after Gohan. They're both about 8, and they can use this fusion technique to form Gotenks, who is one of the only other characters besides Goku powerful enough to fight Buu. But the problem is that he's 8, and he's more interested in being a superhero, like acting like one, than actually being one. So he comes up with all these cool moves, like, oh, I can use a galactic donut, and oh, I can use a kamikaze ghost attack, and he goofs off so much that his fusion runs out. It only lasts for a certain amount of time, and then he doesn't end up defeating Buu for that reason. This guy's powerful, but he goofs off a lot. He has a lot of cool moves. I really want him to be in Dragon Ball FighterZ because I think his playstyle will be a lot of fun with all of these crazy moves that he can do. He hasn't been announced yet, but I feel like he's pretty likely. That's him. There's some other characters here. I guess I don't really need to talk about them except Hercule right here. So Hercule is a normal guy on the planet Earth. He is a martial artist. He is the world's champion, but only because Goku and all of the other heroes were busy like saving the world and actually doing important stuff, and he had time to go to all the tournaments and win them against the normal humans. He ends up taking the credit for defeating Cell, even though it was really Gohan who did it. He's kind of a joke character if he appears in the game, because he doesn't really... He fights with like trickery and stuff, not actually being that strong. But the one important thing that he does do is that he does end up befriending Fat Buu here and being his friend, which none of the heroes actually attempted to do besides him. So he's kind of important in that way. However, it doesn't amount to anything, unfortunately, because someone makes Buu mad at that moment and triggers that transformation into like being actually evil. Just want to make a note about the hyperbolic time chamber that I haven't mentioned yet, but you may have heard about it if you've heard anything about Dragon Ball before. Probably this will be the training stage. It's just endless white space with like a rest area. And the heroes train here in order to fight Cell, and Gotenks trains here a little bit to get ready to fight Buu. And basically the way that it works is that if you're in there for 1 day, you get to train for a year. So time moves slower in the time chamber. You train for 1 year, and you come out, and it's been only 1 day. There are some limitations to why they can't just use this all the time to spend enough time training to get strong enough to beat everyone. Only 2 people can be in there at a time, because there's not enough food. So there's only enough food for 2 people to train in there at a time. And if you're in there for more than 2 days, aka years, 2 days on the outside, 2 years on the inside, the entrance vanishes and you can never exit again. So you only get 2 years total of training in your entire life. And the characters use up almost all of that just to get ready to fight Cell. So when Buu shows up, it's like not an option for anyone except for Gotenks, who was not around when Cell appeared the first time. So here's, if you come back to look at these slides later, here's a more thorough outline of the events that I just went over. So if you don't remember, you can go back and check. This is an ordering of like who's strongest versus who's weakest. The only character I guess I want to mention here that I didn't mention before is that Vegeta and Goku at a certain point fuse as well to fight Buu, because they think it's the only way they can do it. In the end, Goku manages to pull it off without doing this. But this character might appear in Dragon Ball FighterZ. I don't really know. Probably not, to be honest with you, but just know that he exists, I guess. I want to briefly go over the Super Saiyan transformation because it's a little bit confusing because there's a lot of them you can see here. So there's normal state. Just you're hanging out, you got black hair. This is normal Super Saiyan. Goku accomplished this through years of training and becoming mad when Frieza killed his best friend, and he was desperate and he was angry, and that's when he accomplished his transformation. Subsequently, he can do it whenever he wants. This is Super Saiyan 2, which is essentially the same thing for Gohan. Years of training in the time chamber, gets really mad, unleashes it. Super Saiyan 3 is really powerful, but just note that it can't be sustained for very long, so that's why in Goku's level 3 Super in Dragon Ball FighterZ game, he becomes Super Saiyan 3 for like 5 seconds, and that's it. It's because you can't fight as this the whole time, or you'll become exhausted and just lose. So that's kind of the straight line of progression, Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3. But there are some side branches here, indicated by these arrows. So we'll talk about this one first. Before the heroes figure out how to become a Super Saiyan 2 proper, they're not really sure what surpassing this state even looks like. This legendary, like so powerful, no one even was sure it existed. We need to become even more powerful. How do we do that? Well, for a while, the characters kind of thought, okay, well, we can train for a little bit and we can accomplish this state where we become super muscly. And let's go back and look at Vegeta. You can see that in the game, Vegeta is in this super muscly state when he's fighting. However, the energy drain is so great, and actually the muscles restrict your movement a little bit. It's better once the heroes accomplish this, they stick to using this forever and never use this form again. This was only for fighting Cell and the androids when no one could figure out how to do this except eventually for Gohan. Let's talk about Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue for a second here. So this is Dragon Ball Super. After Dragon Ball Z is done, a new villain appears. He's like a cat guy named Beerus. He might appear in the game, I'm not sure. But in order to fight him, the Saiyans find out about this ritual where if you get enough Saiyans together and transfer all of the power into one, in this case Goku, you can become Super Saiyan God. Very, very powerful. It's separate from the normal Super Saiyan progression. It's an entirely separate form. This is how Goku defeats the villain. After that, in Dragon Ball Super, the next part of Dragon Ball Super is that Frieza comes back, is resurrected. We'll go back to the Frieza slide here to show the picture of the person who does it. Commander Sorbet. Frieza trains to beat Goku and learns his golden transformation, which is a super in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Also, Frieza has another super in Dragon Ball FighterZ where Commander Sorbet backs him up and shoots a ray gun. In order to combat this, Goku and Vegeta learn how to turn into the Super Saiyan Blue form, which is also known as Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, which is essentially going through the normal Super Saiyan progression, but applying the power of Super Saiyan God to it. So it's a more powerful version of the normal Super Saiyan, basically. Which is why if you see someone saying SSGSS, they're referring to this transformation for Goku and Vegeta. Super Saiyan with blue hair, basically. It's a lot more powerful than any of these, but it doesn't look any different, right? Let's talk about Senzu Beans really briefly. One of Goku's teachers grows these, and they prepare them for fights. However, they grow so slowly that they usually only have a few ready. In the game Dragon Ball FighterZ, Krillin only has 3 that he can use before he runs out, I believe. When you eat them, it heals your wounds, basically, which is exactly what it does in the game as well. I'll just make a note of these scouters. They can measure power levels and they can track your location if you're a living being. And for villains, tracking the location is really the important thing. Measuring power levels is not that critical, but the villains who don't know what they're doing will go, blah, 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 what's your power level? Oh, it sucks, I'm going to crush you. And then the heroes actually are hiding their true power, and then they power up and kill them. So anyone who works for Frieza uses these scouters, but no one else does. I don't think there's any character in Dragon Ball FighterZ that has this thing, but just note, if you see a character with this on their face, that's what it does. One thing, which is, well, let's talk about 2 things. So one thing is Goku's doing a move here called instant transmission. And what that does is he puts his fingers to his forehead, he looks for someone's energy, and he teleports directly to them. So in the game, when Goku teleports, he is actually teleporting using instant transmission. When any other character teleports, they are teleporting using super speed, so they're just moving very quickly to get to the place. And Krillin is leaving after images in his after image move. Another thing I want to note on distinctions like that is that Kamehameha refers to a specific move where the character shoots a blue beam with their hands. Any other character that shoots a beam and it's not blue, it's not a Kamehameha. It's just a generic ki blast or whatever. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to ask me any questions, please do. There are some things I didn't talk about. If there's anything that's confusing, I'll lay it out for you in the comments. I'll talk to you guys soon.